So few more words about fisheries management. It tries to manage consumers' choices in seafood. It advises, obviously, it's about consuming and purchasing seafood from healthy, thriving fisheries. So farmed seafood, Alaskan salmon. There are issues with farming and aquaculture. They are trying to fill the gap between uh, exploiting wild stocks versus producing fish to meet the demands, right? As we saw, most of the fisheries are overexploited, depleted, etc. So there are issues of farming and aquaculture as well, because there are lots of fish trying to be produced in a small area, and they are fed a lot of food. So to produce 1 kilogram of some fish, for example, you might have to give it 3 kilograms of food, as opposed to the wild where we don't know how much food it ate. And there are other issues like sea lice and oxygen problems, and some exotic species are released into the wild, causes pollution of the region where it's being done, and so on. But aquaculture and farmed fish are here to stay. A lot of the shrimp and the salmon and various fish you eat are actually farmed. You can ask and find out about it. But there are other ideas like ecosystem-based fisheries management, which I will do as a separate podcast. As I said before, what it means is that when you look at a species like tuna or anchovy or whatever else, could be deeper fish, halibut, haddock. We also have now strange fish like Chilean sea bass and orange roughy and so on. Uh, so there is a way to look at their food web in which they are situated, and not just take out selectively the top predators and then fish down the food web. We will see that in a separate podcast as well. But as I already mentioned, you catch the biggest fish and then you exploited it completely, then you catch the next fish and so on. So this tends to create an imbalance in the ecosystem. But the idea is that if you look at the whole ecosystem when you are doing your fishing, there is a better way to manage the system as a whole. Easier said than done, but nonetheless we'll look at it. In general, the fisheries management also is about avoiding overfished or depleted seafood like tuna. Bluefin tuna especially is very popular for sushi. Sushi grade tuna can go for hundreds of thousands of dollars. So bluefin tuna, as opposed to skipjack and yellowfin and albacore, is a cold water species, so it lives long. It gets really big, 2 meters big. Skipjack is smaller. Remember our other allometric scaling. Things that live in warm water tends to have higher metabolic rates. They grow fast, mature sexually fast, breed more, not as big, and then they have a shorter lifespan, right? Shark, of course, you don't want to eat, and some of the shrimp are depleted, but shrimp is now a big aquaculture product. Okay, so you can find out whether it's sustainably being aquacultured and so on. So here is a table showing best choices, good alternatives, what to avoid, and how to support ocean-friendly seafood. It's a long list, and you can actually get a little pocket version of this so that you can carry it. Places like San Francisco, for example, I think offer you this table to look at and tell you that the fish they are serving meets many of these criteria and so on. So here's a long list: Arctic char, barramundi, catfish, clams, cod, crab, salmon, sardines, scallop, shrimp, tuna. So among tuna you have albacore and then skipjack and yellowfin. Tilapia is heavily farmed. There are striped bass that are farmed and wild, and so on. So these are some of the best choices. So you can see a lot of these are farmed fish. So are they sustainable? Hopefully yes, but just like agriculture on land, there are lots of issues, right? Um, necessary evil? Maybe, but there is always a better way to do it, or be more environmentally conscious. Good alternatives also include many farmed fish, mahi mahi, oysters. I love oysters, pollock, some salmon so there are different. Alaska wild salmon is a good choice, whereas the salmon from California, Oregon, and Washington and wild salmons are good alternatives because they are overexploited or they are affected by climate and these dams that we talked on Columbia River and so on. So there are many issues. Okay. Swordfish, tilapia, tuna. Alternative tuna is big eye, tongai, and yellow tail. There's yellow fin here and there's yellow tail here. You should avoid the caviar sturgeon, Chilean sea fish, which is I will come back to. It's not even a sea bass. It's not even a bass. It's a toothfish. To make it sound better, the artificial name Chilean sea bass is given. Grouper, some of the lobsters from spiny Brazil lobster, sharks and skates, of course, albacore, big eye, skipjack, etc. Bluefin tuna is definitely avoidable, and so on. Okay, supporting ocean-friendly seafood. Best choices are abundant and well managed, caught and farmed in environmentally friendly ways. So they are monitored and certified by certain agencies. Not perfect, but it works. Good alternatives are an option, but there are concerns with how they are caught or farmed, or with health of their habitat due to human impacts. Avoidable fish are those, for now, these are items caught or farmed in ways that harm marine life or the environment. The stars here are limits on consumption due to concerns about mercury and other contaminants. So these groupers from the Atlantic, sturgeon, sea bass, sharks, and so on, they have high mercury or other pollutants that you don't want to consume. Okay, can you always go to a restaurant and worry about these things? Not easy, but when you order fancy food and you're paying good money for it, if it's not just a fish and chips in a bar, but you're in a fancy restaurant paying several hundred rupees or several tens of dollars for a fish, you can ask where it came from, how it was farmed, whether it's certified safe, etc. But it's up to you how conscious you want to be, and whether you really completely want to become a vegetarian. But you have to still balance your nutrition, because omega-3, there are vegetable sources of omega-3, or you can find supplements made out of non-meat products, non-fish products, and so on. So it's an effort that requires constant vigilance on your part, but it's all an individual choice at some point.